Hello children, welcome to our science session. Let's continue our chapter, cell structure and functions. Before we continue our chapter, let's have a quick recap of the chapter, whatever we have learned in the last session. We have learned about what are cells. Cells are the basic building blocks of all living organisms. Cell is a structural and functional unit of all living organisms. So what is cell? Cell is a structural and functional unit of all living organisms. Then we have learnt about discovery of the cell. Scientist Robert Hooke in the year 1665, he discovered cell by observing slices of cork, that is bark of a tree, under a simple magnifying device. And he took thin slices of cork and observed under his own microscope. What he noticed a partitioned boxes or room-like structure or compartment in the cork slice. These boxes, they appeared like a honeycomb. He also noticed that each and every box-like structure or room-like structure was separated from the other by a wall or partition. So Hooke, he gave that partition the name as a cell for each box. And what Hooke observed as boxes or cells in the cork were actually they were dead cells. So then we have learned about, so all organisms are made of smaller parts called organs. Organs are made of still smaller parts. The smallest living part of an organism is a cell. Cells were first observed by Robert Hooke in the year 1665, and cells, it exhibits variety of shapes and sizes. Number of cells varies from organism to organism. And about the size, what we have learned is some cells are big enough to be seen with unaided eye, that is with naked eye we can see the cell, single cell. Example, hen's egg is an example, that is by the hen's egg is an cell which we can see with our naked eye. And some organisms are single celled, that is organisms whose body is made up of only one cell. And these organisms, what we call that as unicellular organisms, while some other organisms, their body is made up of more than one cell or many number of or large number of cells, and we call them as multicellular organisms. Even though the unicellular organism's body is made up of single cell, all the activities, all the basic functions which are performed by a variety of cells in multicellular organisms are being carried by the single cell itself in a unicellular organisms. Now let's continue about shape of cells. So how do you define? And last session we have seen about unicellular organisms, example amoeba and paramecium. Isn't it? How do you define the shape of amoeba in the figure? What we have observed, your shape appears irregular, isn't it? We can tell amoeba has no definite shape like other organisms. It keeps on changing its shape. And if you see the projection of varying length of amoeba, which is protruding out of its body, that projections, what we call that as pseudopodia. Pseudo means false, podia means feet. The projections are like feet-like structure. These projections, they often appear and disappear as amoeba moves or feeds. So if you see in this figure, amoeba, you can see that projections which can be seen various parts, various places of part of an amoeba, that what we call that as pseudopodium. And pseudopodium, often they appear and disappear as amoeba moves and feeds. Once if amoeba find a food particle, it extends its pseudopodia and cover the food particle, and then it food particle enters into its body. That is called ingestion. And then if by extending its pseudopodia, it moves. That is why pseudopodia always it changes shape of its body by extending and appearing and disappearing the protrusion, what we call that as pseudopodia. And so what advantages does amoeba derive by changing its shape? What is the use of changing its shape of amoeba? For amoeba, the change in shape, as we have discussed just now, is due to the formation of pseudopodia, by which amoeba can move, and also it helps in capturing its food. And the same way, in our body, human blood, that is white blood cell, what we call that as in short WBC, is an example of a single cell which can change its shape. But children, in our body, white blood cell, that is WBC, is another example of a single cell which can change its shape. But here WBC is a single cell, but amoeba is a single celled organism, which is that for one cell only, the organism amoeba is made up of only a single cell by which it can exist, isn't it? It has a independent existence. But WBC is also in human being, only WBC, that is white blood cell, can change the shape. So example for the cell which can change its shape, you can tell amoeba and WBC, that is white blood cell in human blood, is an example of a cell which can change its shape. And if you see here, we can the same way we can expect various shapes of cells in organism, because we know that organism's body is made up of millions of cells, isn't it? And in the following figure, we can see that different cells such as blood, muscle cell, blood cells, muscle cell, and nerve cell of human being. The different shapes in a human body, we can have different shaped cells like blood cell, muscle cell. Blood cell, you can see it is spherical in shape, red blood cells, spherical shaped red blood cells, and muscle cell, it is spindle shaped, that is broader in the middle and pointed at both the ends, that is spindle shaped. And nerve cell, it is very long and branched. So these different shapes of cells in a human body, it is related with specific functions. And usually, if you see, cells are round, spherical, or elongated. But some cells are round, spherical, or elongated, but some cells are long and pointed at both the ends. That is, we can tell them as they exhibit a spindle shape. Example, muscle cell. And some cells are very long, some are branched, like nerve cell. Nerve cell, which is otherwise called as neuron. What is neuron? Neuron is nothing but a nerve cell. Nerve cell is otherwise called as neuron. What is the shape of neuron? What is the shape of nerve cell? It is long and branched. And why it is the shape of the cell is related with the function what it performs. Here, why nerve cells are very long and branched? Because nerve cell, they receives and transfer messages from different parts of the body, and it transfer the messages to the brain, as well as from the brain it receives and transfer the order to different parts of the body. That's it helps to control and coordinate of the working of different parts of the body. So for this function, the shape of the nerve cell is very long and branched because it has to connect various parts of the body, isn't it? So it is very long and branched. So the shape of the cell is related with the function what it performs. And if you see that cell, how it gets its specific shape. Cell, if you see, cell is have whether it is spherical, oval, elongated, or spindle shaped. How it gets its shape. Which part of a cell, what gives the cell to its specific shape. All the components of the cell, they are enclosed in a membrane. What we call that as cell membrane. The cell membrane, it provides shape to the cells of plants and animals. So in cells, which part of the cell gives specific shape to the cell? Cell membrane. That is the components. What is cell membrane? The components of the cell are enclosed by a thin membrane called as cell membrane, and this cell membrane provides shape to the cells of both plants and animals. You can see here in the figure, but that yellow colored one, it is an animal cell. Here the outer layer, what we call that as cell membrane. But here that in plant cell, you can see that additional outer layer, what we call that as cell wall, is an additional covering around the cell membrane. Because of this, it gives shape and rigidity, strength, very strong to the cells. Got children? So this way, bacterial cell, they also has a cell wall. All plant cell, they have a cell wall, that is outer covering of the cell membrane. One more additional covering in plant cell, what we call that as cell wall. The same way, bacterial cell also has a cell wall. So, around the cell membrane, they also has a cell wall. And now coming to size of the cell. The size of the cell in cells in living organisms, they may be very small as a millionth of a meter, that is micrometer, or we can call that as micron, very, very small, or it may be as large as few centimeter. However, if you see, the most of the cells are microscopic in size, that is we cannot see with our naked eye, and they need to be, if you want to see, that cells need to be enlarged and magnified by a microscope. The smallest cell, the size of the smallest cell is 0.1 to 0.5 micrometer, that is bacterial cell. Bacterial cell is a very smallest cell. What is its size? 0.1 mu micrometer to 0.5 micrometer. And the largest cell measuring 170 millimeter into 130 millimeter, that is egg of an ostrich. Give one example of the smallest cell, that is cell of bacteria is the smallest cell. The size is 0.1 micrometer to 0.5 micrometer. Example for the largest cell, egg of an ostrich. What is the size? 170 millimeter into 130 millimeter. And now let's have one activity to show that we can observe a single cell without any magnifying device. We know that, as we know that a single cell which we can see with our naked eye is hen's egg, isn't it? So now we have to take one hen's egg, boil a hen's egg and remove the shell. After removing the shell, what do we observe? A white material which surrounds the yellow part. The white material is called an albumin, which actually it is liquid in state, but when after it get boiled, it becomes solidifies, means becomes solid on boiling. Then inside the albumin, what we have, the yellow part, what it is called as yolk. It is so this is a part of the single cell. So in hen's egg, what we can see, white material is called as albumin and the yellow part is called as yolk. And are the cells in an elephant is larger than the cells in a rat, because elephant is a huge animal compared with the rat. Is it so? Or the cells in an elephant is larger than the cells in a rat? The size of the cell, it has no way relation with the size of the body of animal or plant. That is, if a elephant a body is too huge, it doesn't mean the cells are also so big. It is not like that. It is not necessary that the cells in the elephant be much bigger than those in a rat. The size of the cell is related to its function. Isn't it? The size and the shape of the cell is related to its function. For example, we have seen nerve cells in both elephant and rat. Both the neuron, that is nerve cell, they are long and branched because they perform the same function, that is control and coordination of different parts of the body. That what we call that as transferring messages. So in both elephant and rat, if you compare, the nerve cell or neuron is the same way, they are long and branched. So from this we understood that the cells of an size of the cell is no way related with the size of the body of an organism. So now we'll see that cell structure and functions. So till now we have learned that each living organism, we have many organs, and we have also studied about the digestive organs in 7th standard. Isn't it? Digestive organs. We can, if I ask you name some digestive organs, you can tell mouth, esophagus, stomach, large intestine, small intestine, etc. So all these digestive organs together form digestive system. And if you see each and every digestive organ, they perform different functions, isn't it? Like mouth, for a mouth, what is it? We give ingestion, we take mouth food inside, then digestion, stomach, then assimilation, then absorption, small intestine perform absorption. So digestion, assimilation, absorption, each and every digestive organ perform different functions. So but together all the digestive organs constitute digestive system. Similarly, different organs of a plant, they perform specific or different functions, specialized functions. For example, root help in the absorption of water and minerals, leaves are responsible for synthesis of food, etc. So children, till now we have learnt about each organ is made up of smaller parts, what we call that as tissue. What is tissue? Tissue is a group of similar cells, that is similar cells grouped together and performing specific function, and tissues grouped together to form organ. That is, organ is made up of tissues, and tissues which in turn made up of cells. So cell, what is cell? Cell in a living organism is a basic structural and functional unit. And cell, they exhibit variety of shapes and sizes. Number of cells also varies from organism to organism. Some cells are big enough to be seen with our naked eye or unaided eye. Example, hen's egg. Some organisms are single celled, that is, they are made up of only one cell. What we call them as unicellular organisms, and some organisms, they are made up of many cells. What we call them as multicellular organisms. The single cell of unicellular organism, they perform all the basic functions which are performed by a variety of cells in multicellular organisms. Then we have learned that the size of the cell has no way relation, it has no relation with the size of the body of animal or plant. Okay children, that's all for this session. Thank you.